All right, and welcome to Hat-Trick Sports Talk, a special Thursday edition since the NBA is about to start in just a matter of hours. We're recording this at 12:18 Pacific. As always, I got my good friends Shane and Brandon in the building. How are you guys doing?
Whoop, whoop, doing good. How are you guys doing?
Basketball, that's how I'm doing.
We're all excited, obviously, for the NBA season to start, and we're going to start with that. Today we got the Pelicans and the Jazz and the Lakers and the Clippers. Let's start with the Pelicans and the Jazz. Shane, I'll have you go first. What excites you about this game? Obviously, Zion's a game-time decision, but what are your expectations for this opener of the season?
Yeah.
Sorry, you can go first.
Oh, sorry. Are you Shane now?
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
Oh, okay. Um. Yeah, I think it's funny that this is the game that we're starting with because to me, we were talking about this. It feels a lot like this whole 22 team re-entry, if you will, is like a giant ploy to try and get Zion and the Pelicans in the playoffs. And so I've been thinking a lot about the Pelicans specifically going into this, and just wanted to see them. So I think it's quite fitting that they are not only the first game, but also that they're playing the Jazz, who in a lot of ways are responsible for the NBA fallout. um,
Yeah.
with Rudy Gobert and obviously
Donovan Mitchell.
and Donovan Mitchell testing positive, being the first players to test positive. um, so I'm just really curious to see. I mean, of course, I'm looking forward to the play, but I'm more looking forward to the kind of the not the atmosphere, but I guess the attitude that some people are might be having towards Gobert if it's like an Astros situation where they're kind of visibly pissed at him. Um, but but you know
Which is unfair, let's be honest, compared to the Astros, but either
oh
way.
yeah, absolutely. Um, but nevertheless, these are, I mean, Utah's a pretty solid team, um, and one of the best in the West. And New Orleans, not quite as much. They struggled early on, but once Zion entered the equation, they definitely picked up steam. Um, so yeah, I mean, I do expect Utah to win, um, but I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if, especially if Zion is playing, if New Orleans found a way to win. So yeah, I mean, should be a good game regardless.
Brandon, thoughts on Pelicans Jazz?
Um, it'll be interesting to see um whether the game is able to return to. I'm interested to see whether it'll be mid-season form or if it'll be uh going back to beginning of the season form for the players.
Mm-hmm.
Because as much as we already know that the players have been playing with each other, because let's face it, as much as they're not supposed to be getting together as a team before they came into the bubble, it's pretty obvious that they have. Because just from watching some of the pre quote
The
unquote
exhibition
preseason
games.
exhibition games, these teams are not sloppy. Like you look
No.
at the Raptors, you look at the Lakers, you look at the top teams, they're out here playing mid-season form games.
I mean, James Harden literally played 35 minutes
Yeah,
the other,
I mean
earlier in the
that
exhibition series.
Raptors Houston series was like a game you would have seen mid-season. It was
Yeah.
not an exhibition game. So I think it'll be interesting to see how these two teams are able to face off against each other, um, whether they're at peak form or whether they're going to be sloppy. Because honestly, these two teams can't really afford to be sloppy. in the 8 games.
Especially these two.
Exactly. They
Especially
need
New Orleans.
to come out there's certain teams that are on the bubble, pardon the pun, that are on the bubble of making it in, right? New Orleans, Portland, Memphis. Those are the teams I'm focusing on, right? I'm not really focused on the teams that already have a spot in the 8 solidly, because most of the teams that are going to make it in have a solid spot, like the Lakers, the Clippers, the Raptors, whatever.
The Bucks.
The Bucks, yada yada yada.
Miami.
Right. I think the teams to really focus on are the ones that are fighting for those last spots. So I think the opening game I'm more interested in, because that kind of will give us an idea of, does New Orleans have a chance? Because if they're rusty, I mean, that's gonna be rough. However, I am interested in seeing where the Lakers and the Clippers stand after a 4-month hiatus?
Yeah, 4 or 5 months. Yeah.
Professional basketball. But all in all, I'm just excited to have the sport that started the end of sports for months back on the television.
Yeah, at least for the Lakers and the Clippers, it will be interesting. This is a interesting opening day because it feels like I got in a time machine and went back to October, because that's what this feels like to me. It's like with literally Zion being listed as questionable, that was weird. Anthony Davis being listed as questionable with that eye injury, like this feels like opening day again. It feels like we're back in October, because these injuries are going to be really interesting. Like if AD doesn't play, the dynamic of Lakers-Clippers changes, and it's not the same game. So who knows? And then same with the Pelicans and Jazz with Zion. So no, but let's go to you, Shane, for Lakers and Clippers. What are you looking forward to in this game specifically? Obviously, as Brandon said, these are two teams that are clearly in a playoff spot and are going to stay there, but still.
Yeah, I mean, I think pretty much everyone in the West, like the first 7 seeds in the West, are pretty much safe. The only one is that 8 spot. That's going to be a big competition. But anyways, yeah, this Lakers Clippers game, I think it's very. I mean, I think a lot of it depends on whether or not AD plays. Because, I mean, yeah, LeBron is amazing, and the team has really come together. But I think that happened when AD came in. I think that's pretty clear. And so, it's. I mean, I don't know. I think the Lakers will win by just a little bit, but that could change very drastically depending on whether or not he's healthy. It's also interesting because Rajon Rondo is not playing. Is that right?
Right. So J.R. Smith, by the way, has played really well in the exhibition games. Alex Caruso, I would look out for him throughout this 8-game stretch, because he's a guy that's going to get a lot more run. So you're going to get to see a lot more of him and LeBron. I think him and LeBron on the floor actually work pretty well together. So I expect those two to be really interesting to watch when you're looking at the Lakers themselves. But JR has actually played surprisingly well in exhibition games. So I know it's weird. LeBron and JR, we know the history, but aside from all that, I did like how the Lakers played in the exhibition series. And then let's move on from basketball now to some football news. We had an interesting week of football news for sure, starting with the big one. Jamal Adams is moving to the Seattle Seahawks in exchange for Bradley McDougall, a 2021 first and a third-round pick, and a 2022 first. So all those picks are going to the Jets. Brandon, I'll start with you. You mentioned Jamal Adams being a good fit for the Seahawks. You were 100% right. Tell me what you like about this trade.
A lot of people are saying that it was too much, giving up too much. I think it's one of those things where people forget that the Seahawks don't really do much with first round picks. Because we haven't really we trade back a lot.
Yeah.
And so to me, um trading those picks is basically the equivalent of just doing what we would do with them anyway. So I'm and we get a verified, certified all-star safety. So
All-pro.
I'm down with it. All pro, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm down with it.
I didn't think it was an overpay. Shane, what were your thoughts on the trade?
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, I think this is a great trade for both teams. Because, I mean, yeah, it sucks that the Jets had to lose him, but I mean, they probably were going to either way. So, to think that I mean, yeah, they lost him, but then they got 2 first-round picks plus what,
A third
yeah,
next year.
in exchange for another safety.
Bradley McDougall is going to do okay for them. It's not best for Marcus May, but hey.
He's not, I mean, yeah, McDougall, he's not great, but he's all right.
I think serviceable is the best word I can put on him.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, in the long run, I think the Jets will be able to get something good out of one of those 4. And yeah, I mean, like Brandon said, the Seahawks don't do well with first rounds draft picks. So, losing those, I mean, it doesn't concern me too much. The biggest thing about this Seahawks defense, last year my biggest concern with them was the secondary, but then Shaquille Griffin, I think he's not bad. I think he had a bit of a down year last year, but I think he can still do well. And then obviously they picked up Quandre Diggs about halfway through the season, which was huge for them, and then Jamal Adams now. And I do think Trey Flowers is getting better.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I mean, who knows what's happening with Dunbar, but yeah. So I think the secondary, I mean, it's not like Legion of Boom good, obviously, but it's a lot better now. I mean, I think it's pretty decent. Now they just have to get the D line a bit better, but we'll see with that. So yeah.
Speaking on the D line, this all but solidifies Clowney not being a Seahawk next year. From what I'm hearing, that is over. Tennessee are probably the only team left here, and maybe the Jets are as well, because Bradley McDougall is making a push for that. But obviously the Jets have been in and out, but the Seahawks are officially out of that Sweet Six. I can confirm that. So as you guys mentioned, I think we are all thankful that we don't have to react to a Seahawks first round pick for the next 2 years, because they are just terrible at drafting in the first round. Let's just be honest. They are terrible at it, and they have been for the last 3 years. So, yeah, I don't think it's that bad. But I looked at it and I was like, it may not be exactly 2013, but it's just like a little. It's not a lot, but it's a little. It's starting to feel like this is what they were doing. Like, you're like, sort of from a little bit of an outsider's view, if you look at the Seahawks, you look at sort of after Richard Sherman and all those guys who got shipped off, you're like, all right, what's their game plan moving forward? And now when you have Jamal Adams, now I'm starting to understand what the game plan was, right? This was a game plan built on like, all right, let's kind of go back to what we were. Obviously, we're not going to be the same. It's never going to be as good as that. But if we can just get a little bit of that with a guy like Jamal Adams, and as you mentioned, Shane, the secondary, I think, is still growing as a whole. And adding in a solidified star in Jamal Adams can only help them, not hurt them in terms of their secondary. So I love it. And I think you're finally starting to see like, okay, this is what the Seahawks were planning on for a while. And they finally got their guy to do it.
Yeah.
I
was surprised too that he actually did end up in Seattle, because I was thinking that he would
Dallas.
Yeah.
Dallas was fairly clear for a few months, but
then when I heard the news, I was like, whoa. All right then.
Dallas, I think it was pretty simple that they just couldn't come to any agreement. I mean, they could have had him last year, but the price was too high. I've mentioned that repeatedly. The reality is, I don't think Dallas had a package that they could do, especially with the Dak contract and trying to figure that out.
They're amazing quarterbacks. So much fun.
So I think because of that, it was tough for them to figure out how to really formulate a deal. And then, so no one's been talking about this, and it's been tripping me out for the last week. This story, there's a few stories every year that freak you out for different reasons. Obviously, the Jamal Adams trade, of course, it's a big trade, so it does freak you out in some way. This is obviously more freaking you out from a health perspective with the pandemic and what's going on, how the NFL is treating it. But what Bruce Arians said really made me take a step back and think even deeper about why we're even starting the season on September 10th, because Bruce Arians said the players, they're going to all get sick. That's for sure. It's just a matter of how sick they get. We got to be careful. So that freaked me out because if you're going to say they're all going to get sick, it's just a matter of how sick they get. If you're actually going to say that, then this is not what we should be doing. We shouldn't have training camp. We shouldn't have a season. We should wait. And I think we've all been consensus in that. But I think this, for me, set me back, especially with they're doing a COVID-19 reserve list, right? And every day that list is full with 6 players, and it's different players every day. This is just it seems. And they say here in this Roto World article, it's also kind of chilling. I think chilling is the right word, because after I saw this news story, I was like, I think we need to take a step back and realize what we're actually doing. But Brandon, what were your thoughts on what Bruce Arians said?
I mean, I think, first of all, I think Bruce Arians is not correct in that everyone is going to get sick, right, if you play a season of football. I was actually thinking today about what Bobby Wagner has been said yesterday in an interview he did, where he was talking about if we want to play a season of football, everyone has to be responsible for what for the actions they take.
Mm-hmm.
And that means not going out to clubs, not going out to bars, just doing your job, right? Like, just doing your job. And I was talking to my mom about this morning, and I said, I actually believe that football is the most likely sport to get through a season during a pandemic. Now, hear me out. This is why. Football is the only sport that has a leadership setup within the locker room where if you screw up and you go against the veterans who are the leaders and you do something stupid and it bites the team in the ass, you are screwed in that locker room for the future. I believe that there is a setup, no matter how bad a team is, there is a veteran leadership set up there where they will tell the young players, they will tell all the players. I believe it, and I know for certain it's going to be in the Seahawks locker room, where you're going to probably have Bobby, Russell, and maybe one other old timer saying, look, this is the way it's going to be. We want to get the season done. We want to play a whole season. We want to get it done. You don't go out. You do not do anything that's going to put you in a position to catch COVID. You go home. You come here. You practice. You do your job. And when we're on the road, you don't go out. And I believe if that level of strong leadership that is found within locker rooms brings a higher chance of people not being stupid. Now, I might just be being very naive and but it is something that people always talk about, like the terms of leadership and how players, because if you think about it, these players, if they want to be on. They're going to have to deal with the fact that they brought COVID into their team. If they do next year, the year after, once COVID is done and then we're back to a regular season, and that is something that is probably a bigger what's the word? Reason not to be stupid and go out.
Shane, your thoughts on Brandon's comments here?
I think I see. Yeah, I see what you mean. I think there is definitely some logic to that because, I mean, baseball especially is a sport where you really don't want to screw up your reputation in your locker room, like you were saying. And did I say baseball?
Yeah,
You
football.
said baseball.
Football.
Football.
Sorry.
We'll get to baseball a bit later, but yeah.
No, yeah. So, yeah, but I mean, the thing is, I don't exactly trust all these players to be like that because you're gonna have dumb guys who think, oh, it's no big deal or whatever, and go out and do something stupid and get the virus. So I don't know, because I mean that's what's scary because with football, I mean if one guy gets it, I mean football players from opposing teams and everything are very close together. So there's a high chance it could spread. So I don't know. I mean,
I think it comes down to like how able to make masks that can protect against it. But
Yeah.
I think if they had like a strong established safety protocol in place that kind of like the NBA, for instance. Not necessarily a bubble, but something else. I don't know what exactly, but then I'd be like, okay, yeah, sure, they can do the season, whatever. But they don't. It feels like they're just kind of going, okay, yeah, whatever.
See, okay. This is where I need to stop you. Shane, because they are having safety protocols. I mean,
know they are, but it
and-
doesn't feel like they're taking it as seriously as like other sports is what I mean.
I mean, so here's different pieces. One is that, like, for example, the Vikings I've looked at their setup. It's phenomenal. But even with that, their trainer still got COVID. And a guy like Justin Jefferson had to go on the COVID list. Now, keep in mind, the COVID list does not mean the guy's positive. It means he's been in contact with someone who's been positive. So there's a stipulation with that. The reality is, I don't think it's hard because yes, you can't control every player, and yes, there's like leadership and all this stuff. But the reality of the matter is, it's not just on the players then. It's on the trainers, it's on the coaches, it's on everybody. And that's hard. But it's over 100 people.
But it's not hard, Robert. It's not. This is your job.
But how is it not hard?
Your job should literally be you go to the work, you go home, you don't go out, you don't go to the restaurant, you don't go do anything. There are so many people in America who are literally doing their damn job and going home. So why should we be saying, oh, woe are these football players,
because
when we should be holding them to a higher standard?
The reality is, we've already seen it this week. And guess what? The COVID list is filled with different players from different teams every day. The reality is, it doesn't matter what these players do. It's just inevitable.
It does matter what they do, Robert. It's not inevitable. It's not inevitable.
Yes, to me, it's inevitable.
That is a bullshit statement to make that so many people make who are people who are like, oh, COVID, it's inevitable. No, COVID is not
I'm not saying for the
inevitable.
whole thing. I'm not saying for the whole thing, but I'm saying for the NFL, considering what has happened over the first days of camp, it's hard for me to imagine, because they're not in a bubble, it's hard for me to imagine this works. it's hard for me to imagine that one team doesn't get it. Like, for example, in MLB with the Marlins.
So
It's
you're
just hard for
saying-
me to imagine it works.
So you're saying that grown men
Because you
don't
never
have
know.
grown men don't have the capability of
That's not what I'm saying.
You're
That's-
basically saying
No,
that you
what
believe
I'm
that
saying
it's
is that-
inevitable because these grown men are not going to have the ability to make the right damn decision to not go to a club.
And I'm not saying
That's what you're basically
I'm
saying,
not
Robert.
saying that. What I'm saying is that it's
That's
just
basically what you're saying, but okay.
I'm not going to, for example, with the Marlins, right? I am not saying, again, they're doing an investigation on it right now.
Mhm.
We don't know if it was a player going to a club. We don't know if it was just already in the locker room from some family member or something. You just don't know that. It might not be a club thing. It might be a family member who's doing some other type of work. Like, it's not just them going to a club. You never know. And I think that's what's so hard is you can't just like, oh, they went to a club. I can't say that with these Marlins players. I can't say that. We don't know. It's just the fact that they're not in a bubble. I guess I might be overreacting. You may be correct, but let's be honest. They're not in a bubble, and it's a different amount of people. This is over 100 staff members, players, coaches. It's just hard for me to imagine how this works, regardless of if the players, coaches, and staff members are being responsible, which across most of the league they have been. But guess what? The COVID list is still full with 6 players a day and different players from different teams. It's just hard. Does that make sense? Do you see what I'm saying?
I mean, I get it, but at the same time, it's like it still is one of those things where it's like I think it comes down to really a society problem for me because it's like it's the same sort of idea of people saying like it's hard not to get it. I mean,
well, let's be honest
and
here.
you bring it back to the family members. I mean,
Again, I'm just using that as an example.
If you have someone who's part of a team, I mean, I've said the same freaking thing since the beginning of talking about sports coming back. It is their job.
Mhm.
This is their job. If you want to get paid, if you want to have your job, you do what you have to do. Or else you know what you know what you can do if you're a sports player? Just say, I don't want to play this year.
And a good portion have mostly for medical reasons, though.
And sit out for the season.
Mostly for medical reasons, players are sitting out. So, but even with that, it's just
Shane.
Go ahead, Shane. What are your thoughts on this?
I mean, I'm kind of stuck in the middle with you two, because like I get what you mean, Robert, in terms of like it's hard to micromanage all these people because I mean, yeah, you can say, oh, don't do this, don't do that, but one person, all it takes is one person to break those rules and go do something they're not supposed to. And I mean, you know that it's going to happen because people are dumb and that's what they do. So, I mean, but I understand what Brandon means in terms of like, yeah, it's their job. They should be taking it seriously, and if they want to figure out a way to, I don't want to say micromanage it, but if they want to figure out a way to, I guess, like sort of, ensure that they're being safe, they have millions and millions of dollars. I'm sure they can find some way. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's tricky. I think if they want to be or not totally safe, but more safe, I think they should just wait until like January to have the season when there will supposedly be a vaccine. And so, that way, if players are worried about getting sick or whatever, they just, oh, well, I got the vaccine, so I'll come in. And, oh, well, we're good, I'm good, So, yeah, I don't know.
I think the major thing that we're getting at from both what all three of us are saying, I think the reality of the matter, especially for the NFL and even the MLB, and we've seen it with the Marlins and the Phillies as well, it's that if you're not in a bubble, this is very complicated in a lot of different ways. It's a
Yeah.
tricky situation because you just don't know. And I'm not going to blame a guy like Justin Jefferson for being on the COVID list or guys like Kenny Galladay. I'm just not going to do that. Right? I don't think we're here to do that. I think what we're here to say, I think at the end of the day, is that this is a complicated matter that is going to take a lot of responsibility from so many people, and it has throughout this whole crisis. But at the end of the day, for the NFL, it's going to be an interesting few weeks because of this too, especially once we actually fully start the season on the 10th.
And then if players get it, then the NFL is gonna be
in a tough spot.
lawsuits or whatever. Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Shane, I actually wanted to start with you going like full on football here. Isaiah Simmons, you have been really excited with his play, and of course with the Cardinals drafting him. He played a bit of safety and a bit of linebacker back in his college days. Now he's completely focused on playing inside linebacker, 100% focused on that position. What are your thoughts on him just kind of wanting to focus on that particular position, or the Cardinals putting him in that spot?
Yeah. I was kind of surprised. I figured he would have been. I didn't think he would be playing safety because their secondary is pretty good. Let's be honest. But I was thinking he would be more outside linebacker because that is what he was listed as. But you think about it. It's a 3-4 defense, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so. Yeah.
So, you got guys like Chandler Jones, who are playing outside, who are also kind of they're good edge rushers. And so, when you think about it that way, having him on the inside, in a way, he kind of will be an outside linebacker because you got to think Jones is probably going to be at the line a lot. So, yeah, I think this defense is looking better and better as the years go on. They obviously underperformed a bit last year, but yeah, I think he is obviously a very well-rounded player, but getting him to focus in and really perfect his skill at one particular place, I think is great for him. So yeah, and I don't have an issue with it at all.
All right. And then Brandon, I'll start with you with one of the big stories in baseball this week, other than the Marlins and the Phillies, would be the suspension of Joe Kelly after him sort of beaming the Astros, like we all sort of thought would happen at some point. Obviously, the Dodgers were directly affected in 2017 by the investigation. What are your thoughts on Joe Kelly getting an 8-game suspension for his actions on Tuesday?
Here we go.
Go ahead, Brandon. You have the floor.
Well. Once again, Mr. Commissioner bumbles the ball again. What is going on with his buddy relationship with the freaking Houston Astros? Come on. I get it. You throw over someone's head once and it looks suspicious. But, this is also Joe Kelly we're talking about. The man does not exactly have the best control on his fastball, right? I've watched that play 4, 5, 6 times, and to me, it just looks like he lost control of the pitch. It might have been convenient that it was a Houston Astro, but look, to suspend the man, and they suspend Joe Kelly and they suspend Dave Roberts.
Dave
But
Roberts on one game.
They don't suspend a single Astro in that whole
scuffle.
They apparently, I think they fined Dusty Baker.
I think they did, but it was a small fine.
It just doesn't look good. And here's the problem. I believe an 8-game suspension is probably the equivalent of what would have been a 22-game suspension in a usual.
It's huge because this is a 60-game season.
Ridiculous.
It's huge. It's massive.
So here's the thing. I believe that Manfred was trying to send a message and snuff out the fire here and now. Well, guess what? Good luck with that, because he has now not only made the Dodgers more pissed off, probably, but he's now got the entire league pissed off with him and pissed off with the Astros. So I want to know: is it that no team can do anything remotely bad to the Astros, even if it's an accident? And are they going to just get penalized because it's the precious Astros? Because this is looking very suspicious to me.
Shane, you can go ahead, and then I want to give sort of the commissioner's perspective on this, but Shane, you can go first, or you can go ahead.
I mean, they cheated in the World Series, which is a huge deal. Okay, yeah. I mean, that's like as bad as it gets in the sports world. The fact that none of those players, looking at you, Altuve, were punished really at all. Meanwhile, a guy who is on the team that lost that World Series because of their cheating, yeah, he's going to be understandably pissed off at them. So even if it was an accident that ball went in that direction, why are you letting the Astros, who cheated in the World Series, just go free? Meanwhile, you got one guy who throws 2 bad pitches and he's out for 8 games. Like, what? Why? That makes no sense. I mean, that's an 1/8 of the season. Like, I don't know. It does look very suspicious. Yeah. I mean, I don't. This is gonna sound kind of weird, but I don't want to see anybody getting in trouble for throwing beanballs at the Astros as long as they're not punished.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, like, it's just so hypocritical. Yeah, I don't know. It's bizarre.
Okay, so forgive me for doing this, but I'm doing this to make a point. I knew this was going to happen. I knew right from the start when we talked about the Astros was getting beamed, I knew for an absolute fact that a player would get suspended. Now, 8 games is egregious. I'm not saying it's not, especially in a 60-game season, it's egregious. I would have been better if he just got fined or 1 game. But in terms of how the MLB looked at this, in terms of how the commissioner's office looked at this, whether it looks bad or not, here's how they looked at it. And Brandon, for some reason, had to head out really quick. But here's how I looked at this. For me, if you're looking at the commissioner, they're looking at this as a separate / isolated incident. This has nothing to do with the Astros investigation. This has everything to do with the fact that he hit him and then he caused a scuffle. they're not looking at this specifically based on the Astros investigation. There's nothing to it. So that's sort of where I'm at, is I don't think if I'm looking at this from the commissioner's perspective, they're looking at this as a separate / isolated incident. This is nothing. Now, does that make any sense? No.
But it's not a separate incident.
It's not. It's not a separate.
It's part of the saga.
No, it's not. It's not a separate incident. But in the way they suspended him, and in it being an 8-game suspension, and Dave Roberts getting the 1-game suspension, that's how they viewed it. Now, does that make him look even more bad?
Yeah.
Yes. But
they have to realize.
that's what
they have
did.
to realize, Robert. They have to realize that surely they're not stupid enough to think people aren't going to get more and more angry if we see another suspension happen if someone does something stupid. They have to let. Here's my question. Here's the query I put out to you two. What happens if someone beanballs someone in the back of just the back, like the usual spot where it's considered okay to hit someone, You throw either the shoulder or the back. Do you believe the situation would be as bad? Because if it is, my God, Manfred is out of his damn mind.
Well, I think it was mostly because of the scuffle. It wasn't just the pitch; it was the scuffle afterwards.
I think it was throwing over his head. That's what they suspended him for. I just think for me, it's great to see players. It's so obvious that they wouldn't have been as good without the cheating, because you look at hitters like Altuve. I mean, my God, Altuve, who, might I remind you, I said I had found suspicious that this man went from being mediocre hitter to God tier. I mean, you look at the man now; he's striking out so much this season.
And he does not look confident at all.
He's striking out so much. He had a strikeout in the game last night where he struck out swinging again, and you could see him walking off, and he has a boo-boo face look on his face. He's looks like he's about to go throw a tantrum, and it's amazing because the commentator for the Dodgers goes, "Yeah, it's not so easy when you have to guess and you don't know." Because and so that in itself is a little bit of a reward, but at the same time, it's you see them that they're still a good team, and so it's Astros, you didn't need to cheat, but yet you did. We know this. Punished.
We know this. They would have been really good, even. It's, again, I understand the frustration, and I'm here as well with it. I'm with you guys, but from the commissioner's perspective, they didn't really have a choice because they had to look at it as an isolated incident.
But they also protected the Astros, though. In general,
I see that too, but I really feel like all it was the commissioner's office, especially Rob Manfred, going, we're gonna ignore that the Astros incident ever happened, the investigation ever happened, right? And it is wrong to do that, but we're gonna look at it that way, and we're gonna suspend him just for hitting him.
I'm telling you, Robert, we're gonna see another situation with the Astros this year, and they're gonna suspend someone from the other team again, and you're gonna have a freaking riot on your hands.
Yep.
With other players on other teams. It's gonna get ridiculous.
And other players have spoken out about how mad they are about this.
It's gonna get dangerous, I believe. People are gonna just start first pitch hitting people. And it's interesting because sports. There were some people on Sports Talk Radio in Seattle who were saying, "Oh, the Mariners should have gone rogue and start and thrown it and done the job to hit the Astros." I don't agree with that because we didn't have any beef with them really. It doesn't make any sense for us to be the ones to
the Dodgers made more sense because they were directly affected, while the Mariners, let's say,
were indirectly affected. And that's another series I'm gonna watch if they play each other because
yeah.
But I'm really honestly on the edge of not being interested in watching baseball for a while, as long as Manfred is in charge, because he just doesn't do a good job. He's honestly maybe the worst commissioner out there right now.
Yeah.
Considering I don't know. It's tough. It's tough for me. I think it's a really interesting spot. But I think you're right, Brandon. I think this could only get worse if it continues. Who knows if it will? But if it does, I think a lot of people are going to have issues for sure. We are also getting ready for tomorrow Saturday, because the Stanley Cup qualifiers start. And I know Brandon and I are really excited for this. So let's go through some of these matchups really quick. First, we start with the Penguins and the Canadiens. Now, Brandon, you are a Maple Leafs fan, and it was pretty weird seeing the Canadiens in Toronto's home locker room.
Yeah. I just I get that it's weird just seeing a rival in their home locker room.
Yeah, I think this matchup is gonna be pretty fun. I think the Penguins and the Flyers had some fun games too, so that should be pretty fun. And this is from Bleacher Report. So I think this matchup should be fun. There's a lot of great matchups here. Like, playoff hockey is just so fun though, and I think even with this, the way the schedule's set up like this, it's gonna be pretty awesome to watch a bunch of these teams. What is your thought process actually with the Maple Leafs going into this for you, Brandon?
I believe most teams are just gonna take it as it usually is. I think it's really should be taken as a playoff game or a playoff series. I think it's interesting though, because you have with the change in standings, you have teams that you have some teams with more teams being in, you have some teams that would have been third seed, like the Leafs would originally have been in, with less teams now being eighth seed. But at the same time, it kind of helps us out because we have to play the Blue Jackets.
Yeah.
So, I'm feeling pretty comfortable with the Leafs. Blue Jackets didn't really impress me this season. Leafs have been kind of on a roll the last couple seasons, getting better and better and better. But we'll see.
Yeah, I'm a Canucks guy, and we play the Wild. The Wild freaked me out. They haven't been tremendous this year. The Canucks have certainly put themselves in a spot with a pretty young roster to be in good position heading into these qualifiers. But the Wild are just a tough matchup for the Canucks historically. I look at this matchup and say the Canucks find a way to win, but I think it's going to be tougher than a lot of people think going into it. Do you feel the same way about this matchup?
I feel like the Wild is a weird team because they're off and on, they play well and then they'll play poorly, and then they play well and they play poorly. They play well and they play poorly.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know much about the Canucks this year because frankly I didn't watch any of the Canucks this year. But I mean, I think it's a good matchup. I think
the Canucks are going to do well in this matchup and find a way to win, but after that, I don't know. I think it's just going to be tough. And then you look at guys like Pittsburgh too. They should be really fun. There's a few good teams here. Any other teams you kind of want to highlight or matchups you want to highlight that you're excited for?
Let's see.
I think
the Blackhawks Oilers is an interesting matchup.
Yeah.
The fact that the Coyotes are in the
Yeah. And then I think one of the more interesting teams that everyone's kind of kept their eye on is the Penguins in this exhibition.
Yeah.
Crosby has had some health issues. This team, as they talk about here in the Bleacher Report, they have a healthy roster. Do you think that's going to help them? Do you think they're a team that can definitely find their spot or find their team being healthy now in a good spot to potentially compete for a Stanley Cup? Are they kind of the upper echelon of those teams?
The Penguins?
Penguins, yep.
I think the Penguins. I mean, the Penguins are always a team that I think is dangerous
Mm-hmm.
and shouldn't be taken lightly.
I would agree. Yeah. And let's see. Let's move on to our tight end draft. Now, we said we were going to end the drafts, of course, with the NBA season starting, but, and Shane with the shades, of course. The drafts have gotten us a lot of great content out. You all seem to enjoy it. So we want to continue it at least for the next few weeks. This week, we're doing a tight end draft. So guys like George Kittle, Travis Kelce. There's actually a pretty interesting group of tight ends here. So let's get started. I have the first pick in this draft. Brandon has the second pick, and I have the third pick. Here are all the tight ends by division.
You mean I have the third?
All right. Yeah, you have the third, and Brandon has the second. My apologies. Let's let this load up here first. I have to get my rankings out here. Shane, you actually mentioned something interesting about the tight ends, that this is actually one of the positions you really enjoy talking about. Tell me why. Why do you think it's such an underrated position in the league before we get started?
Well, yeah, to me, tight end and linebacker to me have always been the two positions that have really fascinated me because they're both very versatile and just kind of dynamic positions because tight end is like offensive line wide receiver hybrid, which it does not sound like those two should mix, but they do, and it's called a tight end. It's just always it's always fascinated me. And then same with linebacker. It's like the leadership of a quarterback with the speed of a running back and the body of a defensive end or something.
Yeah.
And all just in one nice package. But yeah, anyways, I've always really liked watching tight ends and I wanted to play tight end actually when I first started playing football, but that never happened. But it's all right; it worked out for the better.
All right. And now we're going to get started with the draft. I am on the clock with the first overall pick, and this is the easiest first overall pick for me. Welcome the best tight end in the NFL, I would say consensus-wise, in George Kittle. The guy is a physical specimen. The guy could literally wrestle in the WWE, and he showed it in that game against the Saints last year. He's just an all-around package tight end. It's not hard to explain. The guy is incredible. He showed out last year, and he's clearly the best tight end in the NFL, and no question should be worthy of the first overall pick in this draft. Brandon, you're on the clock with the second overall pick.
I will be taking, with the second overall pick, Travis Kelce.
Easy selection there as well, correct?
Yep.
How do you compare the skill sets of Travis Kelce and George Kittle?
I think Travis Kelce is like George Kittle is Travis Kelce like 3 years ago, but maybe a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
I think George Kittle is a little bit faster, and a little bit leaner. I think Travis Kelce's like a bigger, bulkier tight end who can like muscle his way in on the goal line, more so. But yeah.
Shane, before you pick, how would you compare these two top tight ends here in this draft?
I think a lot of it. I mean, yeah, there's physical stuff, but I think a lot of it is mindset, just mentality. Because you see, like, yeah, Kelsey's an amazing athlete, obviously, but you watch Kittle, and you can tell that he's thinking. When there's somebody coming to tackle him, you can tell he's thinking, "All right, how am I going to mess this guy up?" You know what I mean? And he just manhandles everybody, great stiff arm, all that, and he really fights for extra yards and just making plays, which is, I think, what sets him above Kelsey just a little bit.
All right, you're on the clock with the third overall pick.
Okay. Yeah, I think those two are easily the top two. But then I think right underneath them would be Zach Ertz. Not, I think he had, not as great of a year last year as, in the past, for obvious reasons. But, I think he's still probably one of the best receiving tight ends in the league. Still just a really solid player, regardless of any of those other factors.
Dallas Goedert took away a lot of his snaps last year, which I think negated his talent tremendously, at least to me last year. He's still a great tight end. Him and Dallas Goedert are a great combo. I just wish Zach Ertz would get the ball more than Goddard. But either way, I think the first round was pretty chalk, pretty standard. That's how you expect the first round of this draft to go. I open the second round, and I'm going, wow. This guy only had one good year, so it is a shock probably to a lot of people that he's even opening the second round. But I got to be honest, the guy went through a lot in his career, finally found his spot in Vegas now, and he just plays like a monster. So big, so physical. He's the prototypical tight end that you want in the league. And even with 1 year, it impressed me so much. I got to put him at fourth overall. Darren Waller opens the second round. Maybe a bit high, but still, the guy was just so good last year. And I think he's only going to get better. Brandon, you open up, or you're actually the second pick of the second round. My bad there.
Interesting. Honestly, I feel like tight end is the one position that kind of like balances itself out very quickly.
Yeah. Like you have the first round, and then like everything else is so much different, I think.
I'm gonna take Kyle Rudolph. I think he's an underrated tight end. I think he's not really talked about as much in the conversation a lot of the time, and being like a top tier guy. But if you watch him, he's like sneaky good. He has really good hands. He's good at the goal line, good in the end zone. So, yeah.
He reminds me a lot of how I feel about Zach Ertz. He is low on my list. Again, a lot of these guys are a little bit low on my list. He was ranked 28th, but I don't necessarily mind the selection because I think he is a little overshadowed by Irv Smith. I think if Irv Smith wasn't there, Rudolph would get a lot more targets and probably be around this range. Maybe I'd go a little bit lower, third or fourth round. But it is weird. What makes the tight end position strange is because there are so many of these teams, like the Vikings, like the Eagles, that have two really good tight ends. So it makes it difficult to sort of quantify where you would put them. So Kyle Rudolph, I think now is more of a red zone tight end than anything else. But I think that's partially because of Irv Smith. Irv Smith.
That's why I took Kyle Rudolph, because I see him if you're quantifying him as if you're quantifying like red zone tight ends, I believe he's up there in terms of.
I think his whole skill set would be around this range. Maybe I would probably be better going in the fourth round. But if you actually look at his entire skill set and his entire career, I don't necessarily have too much of a problem with it. Shane, you're on the clock with the sixth overall pick.
Overall, I'm gonna go up to the cold AFC North and take Mark Andrews.
Damn it.
He's a player that really shined last year, and I think he will continue to. because he is one of Lamar's favorite targets. And I mean, I think as Lamar develops as a passer, his impact and his skill will just continue to show.
It's pretty clear with Mark Andrews that he's actually going to be the main guy there, other than Marquise Hollywood-Brown, because Hayden Hurst is now in Atlanta. And thank God, because why the heck do the Ravens need 60 tight ends? It feels like they have 60 tight ends every year. It's so dumb. So you're going to see a lot more people talk about him next year. I'm really excited to watch him. I'll open the third, sticking in the AFC North, I believe. Yes, and give me Austin Hooper. Hooper, I don't know what to make of him going to Cleveland. I don't like it. I think Atlanta is kind of where he will be a better player overall in his career. I just don't know how that works with David Njoku. It feels like a bit of a mess. I still don't understand why Cleveland made this move in the first place. But he was so great last year in Atlanta. He deserves recognition here in the top 10. So I'll take him there at 7. Brandon, you're up at 8.
I will take. Well, since Mark Andrews got taken, I was going to take him, but
Well, I'm sorry.
yeah, I'll take Noah Fant. I think he's an up and coming player, and he good. That's all I have to say.
You might be weirded out by him being in the top 10. I had significant thoughts about putting him in my top 10. I think he finished at 12. This guy's going to be a breakout player. If you need a tight end in fantasy late in the year, he's going to be your guy. I just love him. Really popped, obviously, week 12 and after, like that whole Broncos team. But, yeah, this is a great selection. Shane, you're up at 9 overall.
Overall, I want to say Jared Cook.
Jared Cook.
Yeah, because I think he's not the strongest tight end. He's not the greatest route runner. But he has pretty good hands. I like his size. I like his athletic ability. And he's pretty consistently good for New Orleans. And so I mean, I think that he is worthy of being up here personally. But
Jared Cook is unfairly rated, just in general. I believe he's pretty low on my list. The reality with Jared Cook is that he's just overshadowed in New Orleans. There's so much talent there. He's overshadowed. He is very good for New Orleans as a whole. And then I'm up at 10. I'm going to take a guy I didn't really know how to quantify this guy just because of injuries, but I'll take him. Give me Hunter Henry. The reality is when he's healthy, he's a top 5 tight end, but he's just not healthy. So he dropped to 7 on my board. I like him a lot. He just needs to stay healthy. It's that simple. Brandon, you're on the clock with the 11th overall pick.
Wait, Jason Witten's still in the league? What the hell?
He's with the Raiders. He's with the Raiders now. Excuse me.
Oh, okay. You might think this is a little high. Well, no, I'm not gonna take him.
No, I'm not gonna take him. Oh, Jared Cook was ranked 32 on my list. Pretty low, in fairness, but again, not a bad pick.
I will take Evan Engram.
Injury concerns with him as well. Is that kind of why you think he fits at this spot as well?
Yeah, he's a good player. He gets hurt a lot. Yeah.
Concussions a big issue with him, but when he's healthy, he's phenomenal. Again, there's a few of these guys on this list like that, and we just went through 2 of them. Shane, you're on the clock at 12th overall. 12th overall pick.
I'm torn between 2 guys.
Wait, the AFC West is actually done? Oh, it is done. Wow.
Mm.
No, I'm thinking about it.
Jason Witten's still there.
Yep.
You know what? I'm gonna do it. Rob Gronkowski.
Wow.
Might be a little high. It's tough because I don't. He's had a year off, so who knows how good he's gonna be. But he's got the size, the strength. He's a great blocking tight end, and he's still a good receiving tight end. Obviously, he's not. My one concern is that he's not as fast and athletic as he used to be. But I think, just with his ability as a route runner and, as a receiving tight end, I think he makes up for it. And especially, with Brady, I think he'll fit in quite nicely with their tandem there. So.
Yeah, I had a tough time on how to put Gronk. I think 12 is actually a perfect spot for him. I don't think you can make an argument with 12. I had him in the top 10 just because the guy has a Hall of Fame career, let's be honest. But I think 12 is 100% fair as a spot for him. And then with the 13th overall pick, I am going to take another Tampa Bay Buccaneer, a guy who needs to be traded immediately, but he won't. O.J. Howard, back-to-back Bucs go in the draft. That tells you how good O.J. Howard is. He wasn't great last year, and that's kind of going to be an interesting thing with Gronk because, let's be honest, Bruce Arians doesn't really use his tight ends. But again, Byron Leftwich is handling the play calling this year due to the pandemic. So I think they'll use them more. I think they'll use both tight ends a lot more. I think there's a reason, O.J. Howard is there, and there's a reason he goes 13. The guy's just a phenomenal player. He was 10th on my board. Brandon, you're on the clock with the 14th overall pick.
I'm gonna take someone that you guys might think is a little high, but Will Dissly.
I had him at 25.
But the reason I take Will Dissly is because he's shown. For me, he's another guy who has shown kind of when he's on the field, he's amazing. Like when he's on the field, you could honestly call him one of the best tight ends in the game.
You could make a substantial argument.
Very prone to getting hurt.
Yeah.
So,
how do you expect him and Greg Olsen to work together?
I believe Greg Olsen will be a end zone tight end.
Mm-hmm.
He'll be that guy that Russell Wilson has really needed at tight end for the end zone. Because if you think about it, Russell Wilson has never really had that like go-to end zone threat, that big guy who can just stand there and be like, "Hello, give me the ball, let me score the touchdown." I mean, look at Lamar. Like Lamar has Mark Andrews who can just stand there and be like, "Hello, like
I'm here.
I'm tall, I'm big, I have good hands, let me score touchdowns." I mean, we've all seen Greg Olsen. We've all seen what he did when he was with the Panthers. I mean, that's literally what he did. He was like, I mean, he did other things, but he also was amazing in the end zone. So, yeah.
We'll get to Greg Olsen a little bit later. Shane, you're on the clock at 15 overall.
Going back to the cold, scary AFC North. Give me Eric Ebron, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, spooky.
Ooh.
I think this is one of the more underrated tight ends in the NFL. He's definitely one of the faster guys. Got great hands. He's not the best route runner compared to some other guys, but he still is very effective when you need him to be. And I think with this Pittsburgh team that's kind of trying to not rebuild, but just trying to, I guess, like figure out where to go. I think he'll be crucial for them as they go forward.
Wait, what team did you say for Ebron?
Did I not say Steelers?
Oh, there we go. Yeah, he's with the Steelers now. I'm worried with him with the Steelers because with the Colts 2 years ago he was great. Last year not as much. I don't know about how that fit's going to look. Obviously with Vance McDonald, who's also on this list. But yeah, for all those reasons you said, Shane, I don't have a problem with this selection. I open the 6th round. Let's see who's on my board here. Let's see. This guy is underrated. He's phenomenal. I like him. I like what the Rams do at this position in particular. And give me Tyler Higbee. No one talked about him, but at the tail end of last year, he was absolutely amazing. Was Jared Goff's true security blanket at the end of last year. He's a great tight end. He was ranked number 11 on my board. I get him at 16. That is remarkable value. And we got another great Rams tight end here in Gerald Everett, who will probably go a bit later in the draft. Brandon, you're on the clock.
I'm gonna take Jack Doyle.
Yeah. I like the pick a lot. Explain why you like Jack Doyle.
I think he's someone who doesn't get talked about a lot, but he does all the tight end things well.
Mm-hmm.
He tight ends well.
Yeah, no, I think that's a perfect way to put it. He's just not flashy, but he just does everything well. He was ranked 13 on my board. Again, great value there. Shane, you're on the clock with the 18th overall pick.
Well, I'm gonna go back to the NFC West, the other Seahawk we were discussing. That's Greg Olsen, because I mean, no, he's not as amazing as he used to be, obviously, but certainly less athletic now. But he's a leader. That much is for sure, and he's a great red zone threat. Got the size, got the strength, all that, and still, great pair of hands, obviously. So, yeah, I mean, the only thing that I think is keeping him down this low is just the fact that he is a bit older and not as athletic as he maybe used to be. So, yeah.
I open the 7th round with the 19th overall pick. I'm getting some good value in this draft. Give me another guy who needs to be traded. I have 2 guys who need to be traded desperately. I'm going back to the AFC North. Give me David Njoku. Injuries, massive concern. Didn't play at all last year. Pretty much at all last year. That might be why they got Austin Hooper again. Don't like it at all. But the reason why I don't like it is because I love David Njoku. When he's on the field, he's phenomenal. He's a great red zone guy, good route runner. Really loved his skill set coming out of college. I believe out of Miami. Still love him. So he opens the 7th round. Brandon, you're up with the 20th overall pick.
I will take Tyler Eifert.
Obviously not the same player he was in Cincinnati, but still pretty good in Jacksonville. Shane, you're on the clock.
Ooh. This is interesting. Now we're starting to get into the
Dog days, as I like to call it.
Yeah, just a little bit. I'm stuck between 2 guys here, like I was earlier. I'm gonna say, I'll say Trey Burton. The reason is because he's not he's not particularly amazing at one thing, but I think he's a really good, reliable all around guy. Um, no, he might not get tons of playing time, but um, I think he's valuable for you know what his role is, if that makes sense. So
Yeah, he'll be interesting at Indy, but I'm interested to see what his role is going to be in Indianapolis as a whole.
yeah,
But
me
yeah,
too.
he plays his role well. I opened the 8th round. I am still in my top 15 in rankings. I have not jumped below my
Good
top
for you.
15. Give me the legend himself, the worst commentator possible. I'm sorry, he was not very good on Monday Night Football. Let's just be honest. But he's a great tight end, and that's why he came back to the Cowboys last year. And now with Vegas, which again is weird. It's gonna be weird not seeing him in a Cowboys uniform this year, but a legend nonetheless. Give me Jason Witten, and there's the AFC West gone and done. All right, Brandon, you're on the clock.
Tick tock on the clock. No. I'm gonna go with didn't Shane take Greg Olsen?
Yes, he
Yeah.
did. There we go. I'm taking him off. My bad.
I will take. I don't know any of these tight ends, but
I know
I
a
know
few.
I know Jimmy, but not taking
Take
him.
Jimmy, dang it.
No, not at all, ever. I'll take Dallas Goedert.
Yeah, it's a good selection. Again, I think he's just a great player. But him and Zach Ertz, I don't really like that combo. Even though it is amazing, I don't really like it just because you just don't know how they're going to mesh in terms of receptions. But a good pick there. Shane, you're on the clock with 24th overall selection.
Well, dang. What do I do here? I'm gonna take the first guy, the AFC East.
Dawson Knox.
No,
No, who?
Mike Gesicki.
Mike Gesicki.
Gesicki, sorry.
Yep.
You know, I don't think he got much attention or does get much because he's in Miami and they weren't amazing last year, obviously. But I mean, the guy had like I think 50 receptions, about 600 yards. I think he'll be good for Miami as they continue their rebuild. So, yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to take Jimmy Graham here. Not the best nowadays, but still was excellent in New Orleans, okay in Seattle, okay in Green Bay, but I got to take him here. He is just a top-level talent, just in terms of career-wise. The guy's just a top-level tight end veteran, so I got to take him at this spot. Brandon, you're on the clock.
Wow, the NFC North is getting very little love. I will take Cameron Brate.
Cameron Brate, the third Bucs tight end. Again, shows the amazing depth that they have. Just another great veteran. I think it's pretty simple. Shane, 27th overall pick.
I'm surprised he's still on the board, to be honest, but hey, I'll take him. The last guy in the NFC West, Gerald Everett. He's not the best route runner, but he's got pretty good hands. He's pretty good athletically, good speed. He's not he's not obviously not the starter. And I think that's the biggest thing holding him back. But still, I mean, he's for 27, I think you get good value out of him.
My man fell to me at this slot. This is remarkably low. This is even low on my list. I love this guy. And you know who else loves him? The comeback player of the year, Ryan Tannehill. That's Jonnu Smith. This guy is my favorite guy. I love him so much. He's just so fun to watch play. He is single-handedly Ryan Tannehill's security blanket. He just does it all. He's going to be even better next year. If we do this draft again next year, he might even go in the top 10, top 15. That's how good of a tight end I think this guy is. The fact that he fell to me at 28 and the fact that I didn't pick him earlier is kind of crazy. But he was ranked 18th on my board. So, yeah, that to me is an insane selection to get him at 28. But Brandon, you're on the clock at 29.
Give me Darren Fells.
The man, Darren Fells, former Seahawk. I think you can agree with the sentiment, Brandon. The guy's just basically a red zone tight end.
Yeah.
He's a pretty good red zone threat. So, yeah. All right, Shane, you're on the clock.
Well, I was gonna take him, but that's fine. No, I'm kidding. I'll say, should I? Yeah, screw it. I'll say Ryan Griffin. Because, I mean, quite frankly, I think that,
Do you want me to give you kind of my outline on him first?
Wait. I had something on him, but I lost. Yeah, go ahead.
Chris Herndon should easily be in this spot. He's not in this draft. He's the one guy other than CeeDee Lamb who should be in the draft but isn't. The reality of the matter is the guy's been injured for 2 years. The last time we've seen him play is 2018, and Ryan Griffin has stepped into that role and has been quite effective. But I need Chris Herndon to be back and on this list because no one knows how good the guy is. He's just phenomenal. He would make Sam Darnold a lot better as an overall quarterback. Ryan Griffin does a good job, but I really hope that Chris Herndon does play. But that said, getting him at 30 is really solid.
Yep.
Shane, do you have anything else?
No, that pretty much sums it up.
31, I am going to take, let's see, where was I at? Is he still on the board? He is still on the board. Whoa, okay. Hayden Hurst. Hayden Hurst, again, Baltimore. They're 60 tight ends. He now gets to shine in Atlanta. I think we can all agree Matt Ryan needs his tight ends. Hayden Hurst is going to break out and be much higher on this list next year. It is that simple. Brandon, you're on the clock.
I'm going to take Vance McDonald.
Mm-hmm. A little high for me, to be honest, but I'll take it. Even though we're kind of pretty low. Shane, you're on the clock.
I'll go with T.J. Hockenson. He really didn't have that bad of a year, but it's just being in Detroit, winning so few games, I think kind of holds him back a little bit. But give him a year with there's some injury concerns as well, but give him a year with Stafford if they're both healthy. I think he could be pretty effective for this team.
Yeah, that's a good pick. So I gotta go down my list now. Now I'm like really down. Let's see. Am I doing this correctly? Yeah, I'm like now like shifted to the 30s. And I'm actually at 29, and I'm going to take Irv Smith Jr., a guy who's really going to take the mantle out of Kyle Rudolph in the future. Was really productive last year when he got snaps. So I'll take him here at 34. Brandon, you're on the clock.
I'll take Trey Burton.
I already did.
Oh, well, it's not erased.
Wait, did you take Trey Burton?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, you did. My bad. It is my
Fine. Then I'll take, I don't know. To be honest, I've never heard of any of these guys left. But I'm just guessing here. I'll go with Cole Kmet. I don't know.
That is a great pick.
Okay.
That was
yes. Then.
No, that was a great pick. I had him as my next guy on my board. He's the only rookie in this draft for good reason. He's going to get a lot of chances in Chicago to produce early and often. I'm excited to watch this guy play more than any other rookie tight end. The rookie tight end class was a mess. I'm excited to watch this guy play because I know he's going to get playing time in Chicago. So a nice pick there. Shane, you're on the clock.
Blake Jarwin.
Not a bad pick here late.
Yeah, I mean, is he the starter in Dallas?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah,
He is. He is, yeah.
Well, he's not amazing. He didn't put up, at least statistically speaking, he didn't put up great numbers, but I think he'll get the job done for what they need him for. Because they're definitely more of a, more focus on their receiving core and, Zeke. So, yeah.
All right, we're moving down the list here. CJ Uzomah, the tight end of the Cincinnati Bengals. He will produce tremendously under Joe Burrow as his security blanket. He was really good with Andy Dalton and Ryan Finley, for that matter. He's actually quite productive with Finley at quarterback. He's a good tight end. Maybe should be a little higher. I like him a lot. I'll take him right here. Brandon, last pick of the draft for you. And we got two of the Bills tight ends left. Why are two tight ends from the same team left? What is happening?
I don't know. I'm going Tyler Kroft.
All right. Good pick. Dawson Knox.
That's take Knox anyways.
That's funny that both the Bills tight ends go to finish this draft. Kind of surprising. I love the Bills tight ends. I love this combo. They are so young and fresh, and honestly, they just work for that system that Sean McDermott likes to run with Josh Allen. These two just work perfectly together. So it's kind of unfortunate they go this late. All right, and that is it for this week, guys. We'll see you all next week for some fun stuff, as always. So thank you, Shane. Thank you, Brandon. Have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy the basketball. Enjoy the football. And we will see you all soon.
Yes, sir. Take care.